Boom.
So, do we have to be concerned about somebody coming after us because of the things that we're going to discuss on here?
I mean, later on, once we get into the serious topics, I'm guessing that, somebody's going to have a little bit of haterade, or they're going to, have some problems with some of the content.
I thought you were going to say later on somebody's going to come after us. I was about to say we might need to just shut this down now.
No, I'm not expecting anybody to come after us, but I am expecting that a lot of these topics are going to be taboo, and we're gonna come after some stuff that you're just not gonna expect, or you're not used to hearing the information that we're gonna put in front of you, and that's going to be some taboo topics, and it's going to ruffle some people's feathers. So
I think it's going to be, things that people probably just more so don't like to hear about, don't want to accept, or just come to terms with, which can, like you said, ruffle some feathers. But I mean, it is what it is.
Exactly. It is what it is. Let's get into it.
Let's get into another episode of Black Relativity.
Ladies and gentlemen,
where we discuss all topics, tribulations, and issues that are experienced within the Black community, from the standard to the most controversial. No filters, no boundaries, just real talk. This is Black Relativity with your hosts, Gary and Shireen Mariner.
So let's get into it. Why, what in the world made us even think about or decide to create this podcast in the first place? Do you remember, Shireen?
Well, I know that, we watch a lot of news and read a lot of different books and things like that as it relates to issues and things that we have seen that have gone on within the Black community. And those types of things spark conversations, a lot of conversations between us. And I know that it is something that me and you have become passionate about in speaking. And we come across a lot of different information, whether we gather information from other sources, from family members and things like that. And it has opened our eyes to a lot of different things that other people may not realize.
Yeah, I mean, also on top of it, we listen to different podcasts, we're heavy into the Breakfast Club. We're heavy into Deadass podcast. And we love kind of the portrayal that they give, not only of strong Black people, strong Black couples, but it seemed to be missing kind of the focus and the dedication that we bring when we have our conversations in between ourselves, with our friends, our family, like you just talked about. And we really hit the nail on the head when it comes to not caring about the specific topic that we're talking about, because everything needs to be discussed. And you don't really
That's what we do. I mean, we discuss, a lot of different things, especially if it hits home with us in certain ways, whether it sparks a different, certain type of memory within us, that's of something that we may have experienced, and it will cause some pretty heavy conversations between us.
And I think because of the differences in who we are, which we're getting ready to get into, that's what helps us to uncover information and uncover how that may affect us, not only individually, but as a Black married couple. And, we're not somebody with a whole bunch of money. We're not somebody with a crazy lifestyle. We're just a regular person. And those are the people who are affected the most by the issues that we will be discussing. But
right.
Let's, just to help you all understand who we are, how everything goes between us.
Yeah, we can kind of, give you guys a background on our relationship, how we came together, just so you can have an understanding of who we are. We met back in high school, although Gary, not high school, excuse me. We met back in junior high school. And although Gary doesn't really remember that much.
I don't remember her at all.
And we never really officially met, but I used to follow him around, kind of stalkerish, in junior high school.
Pretty boy squad.
Yeah, I thought he was very attractive, and I used to see him in the hallways and just kind of follow him a little bit. And we never really spoke, but at our junior high school graduation, he did write in my yearbook, wrote his name, number, and his address. I'm not sure who actually does that and puts their address down, but I never called, never went to his house or anything like that. I was just happy that he actually wrote in my yearbook.
Yeah, she just dropped me off the face of the planet. It was like, I don't know this dude. He's weird.
Yeah. And we didn't really come back into contact until about 10 years later, where I ended up seeing him, I don't remember how, but I saw you on MySpace and reached out to you.
That's a super throwback, MySpace.
Yeah. And I just happened to reach out to him. I said, I know that guy, and reached out to him just to say hi. And through conversation, I told him that I was living in Atlanta, and he was in Atlanta. Just so happened to be in Atlanta that weekend, checking out a job. And we actually got together, hung out, and, started a friendship until that developed into a relationship.
Now, hold on. Let me let y'all understand this and make the record clear. She went from the geek to the chic and decided she wanted to become a model. And then all of a sudden she hit me up, and, trials and tribulations of living life in New York, the adversity paradox, which we're going to get into later, really had my mind shaped a particular way. And I had this woman who was interested in me that blew my mind as far as visually, but also mentally. Shireen is an extremely educated woman, and to have somebody of that magnitude be interested, and most people don't know that I'm very shy. Although I'm a huge people person and I love being around people, I'm super shy. And to get somebody like that, I was like, okay, this is it for me. But
and Gary is like I don't remember the phrase that I used in the past to describe him, but he did things like you would see in romantic movies. And he claims that I would always joke on him about what he would say to me during the times that we were dating. But, he would do certain things and talk about, eyes shimmering off the moon and stuff like that. It was I loved it because I always wanted a guy that did things like that when I would watch these romantic movies. And that's the type of guy that Gary is.
I mean, you got to understand, I'm a movie buff. Since I was a kid, all I did was watch movies. It doesn't matter what type of movie it is, romance, action, whatever. But I believe in chivalry. I believe in treating a woman, as good as you want to be treated, because you got to put out what you want to get back. And if I'm going to make sure that I get this woman, no matter who it was in the past, up to her, I'm going to make sure that you remember me. And that's my whole point. But
yeah, so that, like I said, that led to our friendship / relationship / marriage now. And we basically started our relationship back in 2010. And we got married in 2013. So we have been together, been married 8 years, and been together 11 now, I believe that is. So.
11 years, 4 dogs, a child. Craziness.
Yeah.
Life is crazy. But anyway, in the process of going through all of that and the trials and tribulations of trying to get to know somebody who has a completely different understanding of the world, or a completely different experience when it comes down to how do you deal with friends? How do you communicate, what it is that you like, what you don't like, interest, and you got to learn that person. We had to build up a different way of communicating with each other because our mentals were not the same.
Definitely.
And it's hard. Most people look at a relationship with anybody, on face value. And what you think you get in the beginning isn't what you have, and you have to learn how to dig deeper and really learn about that person, understand their likes and dislikes and their desires, and the negatives, the trauma from the past, or anything of that nature, and how that is going to impact your relationship and your capability with communicating with this person.
And when you talk about communication, it's also in regards to how you actually how you actually just deal with particular situations that you encounter in your relationship, and are you able to see and understand that other person's side of things? Do you have your own way of thinking, and that's it, and you're not wavering from that at all, or are you open to basically agreeing to disagree but still understanding what the other person is saying, and but just knowing that you have your particular stance, but you can understand why the other person may feel or think the way that they do? And that is something that me and him had to really work through with our relationship.
Most of the time, that had to do with the fact that even though I acted as though I was very open and I was very understanding, you know, my past was very traumatic in different ways, and I hadn't had opportunities between me and the female that I was with to have that open dialect that me and Shireen have at this point. And I didn't have the value in it. And also at the same time, most people will not be honest in saying that I wasn't mature enough in the beginning to handle what was in front of me. And I had to learn how to maneuver through our conversations and the life that we ended up encountering, and different issues that we came across as well, just to understand her and appreciate where she was coming from and the differences between her not having any issues and me having issues.
Well, I wouldn't say not having any issues. I think it's just a matter of just understanding, because that's usually what only thing that I really ask for in conversations that I have with anybody, especially with my husband. I want my side and my point to be at the very least understood, and then we can just come to some sort of agreement, or just some sort of truce or whatever.
No, I totally agree with that. I mean, one of my problems in the beginning had a lot to do with the fact that I did not understand some of the stances that she took. And, a lot of this comes from, the music that we listened to, the family members that we, looked at as, our idols, or the different people that we looked at as, the definition of how to be a man or a woman, or deal with a woman, deal with a man, deal with your significant other. And a lot of those times you don't realize that you don't really know what you're talking about. You don't have the first clue. And it isn't until you sit down with that person that you decide to have a life with that you take the time and listen to them and understand where they're coming from, and try to connect it with yourself, and then grow.
Yeah, I agree with that. And a lot of that does stem from how you're raised. It also stems from just how you grew up. What was your environment like, and the things that you may have seen or may have been taught just during your childhood as you get to the age that you are at now.
Now, when speaking on that, as far as, communication and how your friends and family, influence you, you know, you talk about the importance of friendship. Now, in our marriage, the importance of friendship has changed drastically. You know, I personally have changed from having a slew of friends, which really was just a posse, or people that I thought were or had my best interest at heart. But then when me and her, or me and my wife, decided to really do things that was for the betterment of each other, the betterment of our family, of our children, our home, most of those people disappeared. And we didn't understand why. I didn't understand why. And I had to learn the true value of friendship and what that really meant to us as a couple, and not just me as a person. Because now I'm thinking about us and our family.
And I've never, I mean, for me, I've never been one to really have a large amount of friends that I hung around like that. I mean, I have a few, and just in growing up through different stages of schooling, there I would have people that I would hang out with, but there was always that one person that I was closest to. There was that one person that one or two people that I was closest to that I would talk to about pretty much everything. And and that person may have changed just over the course of the years, but it was always that one or two people. I don't really, I never really spread myself out like that. I mean, I'm a pretty open person, but I'm usually open with people that I really trust and that I see really trust me to be open enough with me. So just growing up, I've only had really, really close friends. And then that's the case even now.
See, and that's completely different from me just because everything in New York to me was a survival technique, from being in front of a gun, from, dealing with gangs, dealing with, you know, regular New York City hood stuff. I don't really, I didn't really have the time to develop the quality of relationships that Shireen did. And I didn't understand where she was coming from or what that was like until I really started to dig into our relationship and get serious about it, and also get serious about being a father and how those relationships are going to impact, or what example they're going to show to my sons, and how that then relates into how I treat or value the woman in our lives, and what those people showcase to my children as far as being acceptable or being allowed when you're around any woman. And because my mindset changed, my friends changed.
And see, even though I grew up in New York as well, I never dealt with being in front of a gun or gangs or anything like that. The most that I've had happen with me was there was a boy in second grade that punched me in the stomach because I wouldn't let him feel on me. And I made my mother tell the principal that that was what he was trying to do. And he got mad and punched me in the stomach. And that was probably the closest thing that I've ever had to a fight ever in my life.
And I can't tell you how many fights I've either witnessed or been a part of. And luckily, I've always valued my pretty boy face, so I never allow people to punch me in my face. But I've had, several situations where things got a little bit hazy. Luckily, I got the gift of gab, and I have always valued the code switching that most black people or most black men, especially dealing with in New York or any major metropolitan, have to deal with in order to get out of situations that you find a little hairy. But speaking about family, one of the things that I know that me and Shireen have always connected on is, it takes a village, and that strong family unit. We both come from big families that, when we were kids, always had, the huge family gatherings and had all of the family by, and it was, a huge opportunity for us to understand the value of the family.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with that. My family was, we were all very close in growing up. And my mother used to have one of my aunts on my dad's side who would watch me. She used to babysit me while my mother went to work. And just like with my younger brother, one of my other aunts would watch him. And we all just kind of worked together to help raise the children of the family.
The only difference between Shireen's examples growing up and mine's was, I only had a very short period of time where my mother and father were in the same house at the same time. Now, I had great experiences with my dad, and I love that man, for what he is and what he has showcased to me, making me the man that I am today. But a majority of the time that I had was with my mom. after they separated. And because I didn't have the mother and father in the home at the same time, my mother had to create environments for me to create that village. And that's where there's a little bit of a difference in our mindset and the reason why I had a lot of people around me at all times, just because everyone became my family. If you were good to us, you treated us right, you talked to us right, or you didn't show any disrespect, and disrespect is a huge thing in my book. But if you did all of that, we treated you as though you were blood, and we broke bread with you. We invited you to everything. We made you important. We gave you value. And so the village to me wasn't just those who were born into my family, but those who were adopted, and we were adopted. And so my family was massive. And so I'm used to having 30, 40, 50 people at a house, celebrating, showing love, sharing food from all different, places all over the planet, from, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica, whatever. It didn't matter as long as you treated us good and you showed us love. But it was the same as Shireen with her family.
Yeah, I mean, well, the slight difference in that is that, Gary, they did welcome, anybody that showed respect and loyalty, into their family, whether they were blood or not. Not to say that, my family did not. That's not where I'm going with that. But my family is pretty big as well. I mean, on my dad's side, there were 15 brothers and sisters. And on my mother's side, there were, I believe, 8 brothers and sisters. And so we just had a massive family just within the family. And I don't have the experience of having the dynamic of not having both parents. Both my parents have been together and are still together. The 15 brothers and sisters that my dad has, it was the same parents and they were together. So we just had a massive family unit, just period. And I guess, and Gary, you can correct me if I'm wrong. On Gary's side, they welcomed everybody, kind of like to try to just create that. I don't know if you may have felt that you were creating a supplement because of the absence of your dad after a period of time. And so that kind of brought, anybody who was there that showed that loyalty to you as part of the family. I mean, that could have been, but, like I said, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, because of the fact that I also had a large, family unit, whether it was in Long Island, New Jersey, Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, whatever, we all tried to come together as much as possible. But because we weren't all in one place at one time, me and my mother being, super, social butterflies, we always created or filled in the blanks, because as a kid, I loved being around people. It was just where I felt like myself.
You're
And
definitely a people person. And
yeah.
that's a definite difference between the both of us. Not that I'm not a people person. My parents say that I love being around people. They said that when I was younger, I would always say I want to go be with the people, and that I would like being with people as I was younger. But as I got older, I became very introverted. And I don't mind being around people, but it's usually going to be a small group. It's just like I said, growing up, having that one or two friend. I'm not a big, huge crowd of people person to be around. So really large parties and things like that, I can go, but you'll see me kind of centered around a certain one or two persons while I'm there.
And I'm the person that's going to go to the club by myself and end up leaving with a whole crowd of people just because I made friends while I was there.
Yeah, that's not me. I'm not that trusting right right at the bat. So
Now,
yeah.
don't get it twisted. That don't mean that I trust you, but that just means that I'm able to maneuver my way and find an equal playing field or equal ground where me and you can connect on at the moment in the environment that we're in, where you feel comfortable with me. And most of the time, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't the type of person that really hung out with a lot of guys. I don't have a lot of dude friends. I had a lot of female friends just because, one, I love women. Two, I was born and raised in a house with an incredible amount of women, and the majority of people that I was around on my mother's side were women. So all my influences are from strong, you know, powerful women who just are unapologetic about who and what they are, and I loved it.
And the
The-
majority of my friends growing up were guys. That's who I was closest to. Were guys, and I mean, I do have close female friends, but the majority of my friends that when growing up have been guys. So it was opposite of Gary.
And so that also, had a little bit of a moment of contention between us, or provided tension between us at the start of our relationship. But that's a whole nother topic. Now, yeah, we won't even get into that. Anyway, one of the things that I will say kind of defines one of the differences between me and Shireen. We watched, let me say this correctly. Shireen put in front of me an episode of Red Table Talk. I don't know if any of y'all listened to it, but I highly recommend it. There was an episode between Will Smith and Kevin Hart, and they spoke about the adversity paradox. And I can't tell you how hard that hit me, given the fact that, as we talked about earlier, Shireen's never really been into a fight except for when she was, in elementary, you know, but I can't tell you, I've dealt with, the Latin Kings. I dealt with the Trenchcoat Mafia, the Russian mob. I've dealt with the Bloods, the Crips, the Lost, LBs. I dealt with everybody in New York, and all of them were my friends. Since junior high school, all I knew was gangs, but I felt comfortable around them. I felt comfortable around guns, around bullets, around, people getting, damn near murdered. I've seen people with their face, half cut off coming out of junior high school. I've seen a dead body before. I've seen all types of craziness. And so that builds up a level of hardness that you don't really understand is there until you get away from it. And it wasn't until I got away from New York and came down to Atlanta to live with my wife that I understand just how much that impacted me, impacted my choice in friends, my outlook on life, what I accepted, what I thought was acceptable, what I chose to deal with, and then you try to provide this difference with your children growing up, and you don't realize what you're taking away from them by providing them that level of protection. But I see it every day in the way that me and Shireen interact with each other and how we talk.
And I think that, when it comes to the adversity paradox, I kind of waver on it because I can definitely understand when Will and Kevin Hart were talking about it and Gary's point of view. When you look at what you may have dealt with growing up and how that made you the person that you are today, what that has taught you or whatever, you want to be able to, well, on one side, you don't want your children to have to go through that same type of experience because you know how it was when you experienced it. At the same time, you don't want them to miss out on that growth because they did not experience it. And what has me wavering is that, I understand that point of view on Gary's side, but see, I never experienced that. So does that mean that I missed out on some sort of growth? I don't think so. I just think that my life went in a different path. I didn't get in any fights. I weren't around any gangs. My life was centered around, education and things like that. I'm very big in learning and reading and just making sure to just kind of build yourself the best way that you can. And that's what my parents kind of put on me. So I look to put that onto my child. Now, does that mean he misses out on anything? I don't know. I think he'll get what he needs from Gary's side because of what he dealt with. So I guess that kind of brings that unity together so he can have both sides because I didn't experience anything like that. So there's nothing that I would know to prevent my child from, because I haven't experienced it myself, and I don't know what to allow him to experience because I may not have experienced it myself either.
Now, when speaking of all of those different things that we've encountered and how we feel about it, one of the things that one of the things that brings up is respect. How we show respect to each other given those differences in our, mentally, emotionally, trauma wise, giving each other the space and just having respect, knowing that somebody is dealing with what they're dealing with, or that we may not fully understand, but that we do communicate and try to gain an understanding.
That's the
To
biggest thing is having an understanding. When you have an understanding of what somebody may have dealt with, whether it's growing up or just different experiences in their life, when you have that understanding, then you'll have more respect and more understanding again for how they react to certain situations. You'll know why. You won't sit and say, "Well, you shouldn't act this way or you shouldn't respond this way." Their response may not be appropriate, yes, but there has to be a level of understanding as to where it's actually stemming from.
and then that doesn't always have to deal with just the relationship that you're in. You take that into the respect that you give or expect from your friends. But when speaking about the respect, once you get it, and that moves on into the loyalty and the commitment that you have. Is I look at how committed I am to my relationship with my wife, and the reason why it has as much meaning as it has, given everything that I may have done before our relationship, and how I value the strengths that we have because of either the things that I don't want to happen again, or the things that I value so much that I now have that I never had before.
Well, loyalty and commitment, I think at least for me, it it gets tested right at the beginning. Well, I think right at that transition of when you're in a relationship and then you're into marriage, because for me, when you're in a relationship, if someone does something that's just not you're not with, or you're just like, no, I'm not having this, you break up with the person. That's it. Moving on. But when you get into that marriage, yeah, some people may be quick to get a divorce and, will be quick to do that. But having that marriage title actually causes you to kind of sit back and see, how can I work through particular issues? And you have to think of that. It ends up testing your commitment to that person when you start dealing with issues that you actually have to work through and have to figure out how to deal with. And then it makes you stronger as a couple as well.
I totally agree. And, you know, our loyalty has been tested. I can't tell you how many times, through issues from the past, who we may have been, or our mindsets on how to deal with issues.
Our habits that we had.
Habits is a big thing. You don't realize how much something is a habit until you meet it face to face, either where your significant other, identifies it and comes to you, if they're mature enough and know how to come to you, which is a whole nother aspect.
That deals with the communication aspect.
Yep.
You have to learn how to properly communicate with your significant other, so this way you can get the result that you want. And that's something that we both have learned with each other. I can't even really say that there was any point in our marriage where we were actually yelling back and forth at each other or arguing with like anger, and just, like with such anger that we just go back and forth. We just don't do that.
And I think, on my side, that has a lot to do with, prior relationships where things have really gotten toxic. And the last thing I wanted to do with someone who I valued as much as I do my wife is to come across in that toxic way and to just be an asshole. You know what I'm saying? You really got to have more value, and that gets into honesty. Honesty with your significant other or just with the person that you're dealing with, even in a regular friendship, honesty about exactly where you're coming from, what you're thinking, and trying to identify the problem so that you can be honest in your own emotions and your own feelings about it.
And yeah, I agree with that. I mean, honesty is a big thing, but honesty to me, I feel only really works when you have an open enough mind to accept that honesty and you're not going to be judgmental. I know one thing that I would do in relationships sometimes in the past, and it may not work for everybody, but something that I used to do is that when there were tough conversations that needed to be had, I would always say, okay, let's forget the fact that we're in a relationship right now. I would want me and that person to have a conversation as though we were just friends talking to each other, because it took out that aspect of feeling like you may lose the person or, that it would cause some sort of relationship difficulty. But if we're talking as friends, then it creates a little bit more ease in having difficult conversations, and it takes away some of that judgment that would generally be there when you're in a relationship or in a marriage. So I tend to like to approach difficult conversations as though I'm just talking to my friend, and I try to receive what they say in the most non-judgmental way and hear what they're saying and then just respond to it and not react, so to speak.
And see, I had a problem with that in the beginning because I didn't know how to do that. I was super judgmental. You know what I'm saying? And that had a lot to do with the fact that I wasn't as open-minded as I thought that I was. And to come to an understanding and learning that I wasn't everything that I said. I spoke a good one. I put out a good game, but I wasn't all of that.
Yes, you did.
And I don't have a problem with admitting where I'm wrong. And that comes with honesty, just being honest with myself and knowing that, I have an opportunity to grow here and I can be better. I can be everything that I'm talking about that I want to be or that I say that I am. Now, you know, things happen in life that kind of, take you for a loop or throw you off the path, but you got to learn how to get up and take those L's and grow with it. There's nothing wrong about being wrong as long as you learn from that opportunity and become better.
Yeah, and talk through it. Talk through it so this way you can get to that understanding and get to the point where you can move forward and know how to deal with it when it comes up again. I know for me, one of the reasons why I like to have discussions the way that I mentioned and do not like to argue or anything like that is, I don't like to deal with stress. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't like to deal with stress, but I deal with anxiety. And I've dealt with a lot of anxiety for years that I finally got managed. And I try to avoid that at all costs. So if somebody, if me and Gary have an issue or something like that, I don't want to stress. I want to sit and have a conversation. I want to be calm because the stress is just going to make me feel worse. And, the stress and anxiety that I deal with, that's a whole other topic. But that's one of the reasons why I like to approach conversations the way that I do.
And to be honest with you, I've dealt with anxiety and depression for a long time. It's been at least 20 plus, no, man, it's almost been 30 years that I've dealt with anxiety and depression because of traumatic events in my life, toxic relationships, toxic friendships, seeing the different things that I've seen, coming across the different things that I've come across, and, dealing with family issues. And, that really can dig at your heart and change who you are, and you don't even realize it. But that gets into, life conversations that me and the wife have had on, I can't tell you how many topics, and nothing is too taboo. Nothing is too crazy or out of line, for us to talk about because it allows for us to get to know each other better. It allows for us to grow and become stronger as a unit. And at the same time, I look at the fact that I don't curse at my wife, I don't yell at my wife, I don't raise my temper, I don't get out of line, primarily because I respect her, I love her, but at the same time I'm a father and I got kids who look at me as an example of how to respect show care, love, and emotion to a woman or to each other. And every single day, every time I open my mouth, it is an example. And I have to keep that in mind as soon as I wake up.
And those life conversations, they extend to different areas outside of just, conversations that me and Gary may have. We have a lot of different life conversations about just different things that we may watch, whether it's, watching the stories about the George Floyd killing, or watching movies like Get Out, or Us, or something like that. It brings, or even the more recent one, the series that I believe it's on Amazon. And, that stems into a lot of different life conversations and things that we may have experienced ourselves as a Black couple, or as a Black woman, a Black man, things that we may have related to. And so we end up having a lot of different conversations about things and how they may have affected us or are affecting us current day. And that is really what kind of led us into this conversation about having a podcast, because we look at all of these conversations that me and him have and different things that we may read or whatever. And it was something that we want to be able to put out there to other people, and that other people may actually find interesting. So there are a lot of different topics and things that we plan on discussing that as it relates to Black people.
I mean, there's so much to discuss, from, just being in love as a husband and wife in America in the time that we are in, with the focus that there is on everything else except for being a Black heterosexual couple, or just being Black in America, or, there's so many different things. We mentioned movies, we mentioned, trauma, anxiety, stress.
Anxiety is a big one. I mean, especially I'm pretty sure that's a big one within the Black community anyway. As we have seen with the whole COVID pandemic and everything, mental health has been an increasing issue in the Black community.
We also, being Black in America, you can't get away from the news. There's just so many things that are going to impact you. If it wasn't, for the 4 years underneath Donald Trump, or, the 8 years underneath Obama, or the current president, and how every time you turned on the news, either there was somebody who looked like you who was murdered by a cop, or there was somebody who ran into a church or some school and lit up some Black people, and it was okay. And you just supposed to forgive and forget, and you're supposed to have peace with that, or, just being a parent and trying to help your child understand what they're seeing and how they're going to, deal with everything that has gone on and is going on, and you're getting ready to go into this world.
Well, how to talk to them about that, how to prepare them for those types of things. These are all things that we as a Black community have to deal with. And it's difficult. And a lot of these things that we see on TV, it can cause trauma. It can cause some sort of post-traumatic stress that I'm pretty sure a lot of people deal with. And, these are things that need to be discussed so we can, move forward, figure out better ways to handle these situations, and hopefully heal from some of the traumatic situations.
Now, we've gone over some of the topics, or what we will call series or shows that we will be expanding on in depth. And, we won't just be talking about it. We're going to provide you with sources. We're going to provide you with links to do your own research, and not just take what we say for face value. We want you to go and educate yourself, because it is important for you to know.
Yeah, because, I'm pretty sure that there are people out there that will have that question of saying, well, why should we listen to you two? What makes you too important enough for me to just believe what it is that you're saying? And because I'm very big on education, providing the resources and information for you to actually look at yourself is very important.
So this ain't going to be a run-of-the-mill podcast, and it's not going to be, some pillow talk. We're not going to get into the, 107.5 WBLS.
Oh Lord, have mercy.
We're not gonna give it to you like that. This is gonna be raw. This is gonna be uncut. I'm a New Yorker to the heart, so I'm gonna kick it to you raw. Point blank, period. And
yeah, and we hope that you guys enjoy the conversations and decide to follow us and reach out to us. If there's anything that you would like to see discussed that we haven't discussed yet, maybe it's something that's up and coming or something that we haven't even thought of.
Yeah, we appreciate the feedback. We appreciate the love. We appreciate the support. But thank you for starting out on this journey, because this is really just the beginning.
Enjoyed this episode? Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And check out our website at blackrelativity.com for additional info and discussions. Also, if you know someone that will like this content, take a screenshot and share it on social media. From the standard to the most controversial topic, we got you covered. This is Black Relativity.